The first time my rich neighbor's son challenged me, everyone on the street stopped what they were doing. Phones came out. Neighbors gathered on their lawns. Even children stopped riding their bicycles. Tyler was 24, over 6 feet tall, built like a bodybuilder, and proudly wore a black belt he had earned after years of martial arts competitions. His father, Richard Hamilton, owned one of the largest construction companies in the city and never missed a chance to remind everyone how successful his family was. Ever since they moved into the mansion next door, Richard acted as if the neighborhood belonged to him. He mocked old houses, complained about children's laughter, and loved telling people that money separates winners from ordinary people. My small home looked insignificant beside his mansion, and I preferred to spend my evenings repairing my porch, mowing my lawn, or helping elderly neighbors. I never told anyone about my military past because I believed respect should come from character, not medals. To everyone around me, I was simply Daniel, the quiet middle-aged man who enjoyed gardening and drank coffee on the porch every sunrise. What no one knew was that years earlier I had commanded one of the toughest Navy SEAL teams in dangerous operations where one mistake meant no one came home. Those memories stayed locked away because I had promised myself that chapter of my life was over forever. Everything changed on a blazing Saturday afternoon during Richard's enormous neighborhood barbecue. Luxury sports cars lined the street, while expensive music blasted across perfectly trimmed lawns. Richard loved showing off, and that day he introduced Tyler as the toughest young man in the state. Tyler spent the afternoon demonstrating spinning kicks and breaking thick wooden boards while guests applauded loudly. Then his eyes landed on me as I quietly carried groceries toward my front door. Richard laughed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Daniel, why don't you let Tyler teach you a few moves? Looking at you, I doubt you've ever been in a real fight." The crowd chuckled. I smiled politely and continued walking. Tyler stepped directly into my path, folded his muscular arms, and grinned. "Come on, old man. 5 minutes. Show everyone what you've got." I calmly replied, "I don't fight for entertainment." His smile disappeared. "Or maybe you're scared." The crowd laughed even harder. Richard raised his glass and shouted, "Guess we know who the coward is." My heart remained calm because I had heard far worse in places where bullets replaced insults. I simply walked around Tyler and entered my house without saying another word. From that day forward, the harassment became constant. Tyler revved his sports car outside my home late at night. Richard filed ridiculous complaints about my fence, my mailbox, even the color of my flowers. Every encounter ended with another challenge. "Fight me if you're a man," Tyler would yell. The neighborhood slowly began believing I truly was afraid. Children whispered when I passed. Adults exchanged disappointed looks. None of it bothered me because discipline had taught me that silence often requires more strength than anger. Then one afternoon, I noticed smoke rising from Richard's backyard. A barbecue grill had exploded after a propane leak. Flames spread quickly toward decorative wooden fencing while guests screamed in panic. Tyler rushed toward the fire to save his younger cousin, but part of the collapsing patio trapped his leg beneath heavy timber. Thick smoke swallowed the yard within seconds. Without thinking, years of training took over. I sprinted through the flames, calculated every movement instinctively, lifted the burning beam just enough to free Tyler's leg, carried the terrified child under one arm, and directed everyone away from the spreading fire with calm commands that cut through the chaos. Firefighters arrived minutes later, surprised that everyone had already been evacuated safely. Tyler stared at me with disbelief. How did you stay so calm?" I simply answered, "Panic never saves lives." The next morning, Tyler knocked on my front door alone. His confident swagger had disappeared. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "Who are you really?" I hesitated before inviting him inside. On one shelf sat a dusty wooden box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were faded photographs, military patches, and a small framed citation signed by senior commanders recognizing the successful missions led by my Navy SEAL unit. Tyler's eyes widened as he slowly realized the truth. You led a SEAL team?" I nodded. "For many years." He looked ashamed. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" I smiled. "Because the strongest people rarely need to announce who they are." Tyler lowered his head. "I challenged you over and over." I replied softly, "Winning a fight is easy. Preventing one is much harder." Tears filled his eyes as he apologized sincerely for every insult. Later that evening, Richard himself appeared at my porch. For the first time since moving into the neighborhood, the wealthy businessman looked uncomfortable. "Daniel," he said quietly, "I judged you by your house, your clothes, and your silence. I was completely wrong." He extended his hand. "Thank you for saving my son." I shook it without hesitation because holding on to resentment serves no one. Word spread quickly throughout the neighborhood, but not because I told anyone. The firefighters had recognized military leadership in the rescue, and soon people discovered pieces of my past through public commendations. Suddenly, the same neighbors who once laughed began treating me with genuine respect. Yet nothing changed about my daily routine. I still mowed my lawn every Saturday, helped elderly neighbors carry groceries, repaired broken fences for free, and drank coffee on my porch each sunrise. Tyler started volunteering with veterans organizations and mentoring local teenagers, often repeating one lesson he claimed had changed his life forever. Real strength isn't proving you're the toughest person in the room. It's knowing you don't have to. Richard quietly funded community projects instead of showing off his wealth, and over time our street became less divided by status and more united by kindness. Looking back, I realized Tyler never truly wanted a fight. Like many young men, he simply wanted someone to prove himself against. He believed power came from defeating others. What he learned instead was that true warriors don't seek battles. They protect people from them. The greatest victory of my life wasn't a mission overseas or a medal locked away in a dusty box. It was watching an arrogant young man transform into a humble leader because compassion succeeded where violence never could. Sometimes the strongest punch is the one you never throw. And sometimes the greatest heroes are the quiet neighbors whose extraordinary past remains hidden until someone else's life depends on it. That truth spread far beyond our neighborhood, reminding everyone that character is worth infinitely more than wealth, titles, muscles, or applause, because legends aren't remembered for the fights they started. They're remembered for the lives they changed. As the sun set over the neighborhood one final time, the crowd no longer remembered the challenge or the insults. They remembered the courage, humility, and quiet strength of the man they had underestimated. Tyler walked away with a new definition of what it meant to be strong, while Richard learned that true greatness can never be measured by money or status. Daniel returned to his peaceful life, proving that real heroes don't wear their achievements like trophies. They carry them with humility. And from that day forward, whenever someone asked who the toughest man in the neighborhood was, the answer was always the same. Not the loudest, not the richest, and not the strongest looking, but the quiet man who chose wisdom over violence and compassion over pride. Because in the end, the greatest victories are won without throwing a single punch, and the strongest warriors are the ones who inspire others to become better people.